Hey everyone, it's your teacher, Nora Villarreal, and I was just calling with some tough love / cheerleading based on the feedback from your second essays, which I just got done grading. Overall, some of them were pretty good. There were a couple people who got A's and B's and C's. But over half the class received an F on Essay 2, which was fairly shocking to me and may have been fairly shocking to you, especially if you know each other and have been talking about the class, which I think some of the dual credit students have. So I wanted to touch base with you about Essay 2. First of all, to encourage you and to remind you that it's not too late in the semester to bring that grade up to where you want it to be. And also to offer some advice and some tough love about how to be successful in a college class. So the first thing I wanted to talk about were the things that went really well with the essay. It was really clear that there were some people in class who have been keeping up with the reading assignments I've been assigning to you, who have been turning in all the process work, like the writing samples, the generating ideas, and the peer reviews, and who have been reading and paying attention to the feedback that they've gotten from me and also from their partners. There were a couple essays in the class that showed a lot of hard work, that showed a really good understanding of the topic. And even if those essays didn't get an A, they portrayed a very clear effort for the success that they gained. So kudos to the members of the class who did well. For people who didn't do so well, I had some pretty serious concerns that I'll just speak about really frankly. One of my first concerns is that I have a very strong suspicion that some of you did not present original work for Essay 2. And what I mean by that is I think it's very likely that some of you recycled essays that you had written for other classes or other assignments, whether they were for high school or college, and submitted it for my assignment. One of the reasons I have that suspicion is because some of the topics that you choose were not connected to the textbook at all and sometimes, in certain cases, did not even seem tied to my assignment. It seemed like it was just something that someone plucked out of a pile and turned in for my class and had nothing to do with my assignment sheet. So that was obviously a problem. You always want to make sure that the work that you're producing is really specific for the assignment that I give you. And if you're trying to recycle old work or use something for my class, that was originally meant to be for another class, I would encourage you, first of all, to get in touch with me about that. That is actually considered a form of plagiarism, as you've seen. It's called self-plagiarism, and that could lead to some pretty serious issues. So if you think you have something that might work for one of my assignments, I just ask you to get in touch with me, and I'll be happy to speak with you about the best ways to handle it. And normally I'm going to say, yes, you can use that for my class, but here's how I would like to see it changed. Here's some of the requirements that I have that don't line up with what your work is, and we can talk about ways to make that permissible. So the first thing I really want to encourage you to do is make sure you read my assignment sheet and write me an original assignment in response for that. It was very clear, especially in 2 or 3 particular essays that I'm thinking about, that this was written probably for something else, I would assume, and somehow the student found one little random quote from one of our textbook selections to pop into the essay. And that just really doesn't work. So make sure you're producing original work in line with my assignments. My second piece of advice would be to make sure that you give yourself enough time to complete the assignments. It was very obvious that many of the essays were not revised at all and were written in a huge hurry. And again, some of the ways I know that are things like majorly glaring errors throughout, crazy formatting, words that are spelled incredibly incorrectly, things that even the quickest revision would have spotted are getting handed into me. As you should know, if you've read the grading standards for the English department, which I really strongly encourage you to do, I do have very high expectations for this course. This is a college level course. It is a transfer level course, and it's my responsibility to ensure that the rigor of the course itself and also the quality of the work that you're producing meets those standards, because the universities that you may go on to transfer to have those high expectations as well. So this is not just Nora being a stickler, being an English teacher. If you look at those grading standards, I am beholden to them, and part of my job is making sure that your work is in line with that. And unfortunately for some of you, that's not quite the case yet. So do make sure you leave yourself enough time to seek help ahead of time if you think that your writing might not be up to these high college level standards that we're seeing in English 1001. I also have a very strong suspicion that some people did not read the prompt that I provided to you, or maybe read it once or twice and then sort of never came back to it again. You know, one reason that I think that is because there were several people who submitted essays with no secondary sources, or with a book source when the prompt is really specific about requiring web sources. There were many people who did not include a textbook source at all, which was another reason I was suspicious that maybe this essay wasn't even written for our class. So, you know, I always recommend when you have an assignment like this Essay 2 assignment sheet, you know, you can do this electronically or in a hard copy like I've done here, but you should come back to it and refer to it over and over again as you're working on the assignment. Something that I'll typically do on assignments like this in my own life as a student, because I'm always still learning, is highlighting important elements that I need to make sure, maybe taking notes on things that I need to make sure that I accomplish. And again, coming back and referring to this sheet over and over again so that I can ensure I'm meeting its requirements before I submit the essay. That's so, so important. Another piece of advice I have for all the members of the class, which was kind of a theme that I saw throughout many of the essays, is taking a sophisticated approach to your topic and remembering that your audience is composed of your professor, me, and other adults who are in college. So we want to make sure that our approach to these topics is as sophisticated as our audience is. So for example, and this is not from your group, but I one time had a student write an essay on basketball versus football. And I was a little like, I don't know about this. I don't know if this is the best or the most appropriate topic for a college class, but you know, I eventually okayed it. And then the student wrote an essay that was literally comparing a physical basketball to a physical football. Like one is round, one is oblong, one has laces, one doesn't. And as you can clearly see, that topic is not appropriate for this audience. You want to go beyond those really surface level identifiers or points of discussion and aim for something that is relevant and sophisticated enough to befit the audience that you're writing for. So think about adults, think about people who are college educated, and think about telling us something that we don't know about your topic. Think about taking a new angle on it. One of the last things I'll mention that I was concerned about in the essays is a lack of demonstration of understanding of what you've been reading and working on so far. So for example, when you're reading about MLA documentation in the style book or in the Little Seagull handbook, when you're reading about developing paragraphs and the best way to use sources in your Back to the Lake textbook, I should see those key skills showing up in your work. I would be really curious to look and compare, you know, how many people earned a D or an F on Essay 2 and how many of those same people failed to turn in the writing sample that I provided feedback on. I wonder if there's a correlation there. You always want to keep in mind that the work that you're submitting to me should demonstrate that you have been keeping up with and understanding the readings and the smaller process work assignments along the way. And if at any time anything about those readings is not clear, you should work to clarify that before handing in your essay. So for example, it was clear to me that a lot of us still don't know how to put together a works cited page. There were some that just showed little errors here and there, which is totally understandable, right? But there were others that showed zero understanding of what a works cited page should look like, right down to even the font or the alphabetization of the sources or the elements that were included. So always be working to demonstrate the skills that you've been gaining all semester in the writing that you present to me. There were a few essays, I'll admit, I'll be really frank, there were a few essays that I looked at and wondered, has this person done any of the reading that I have assigned? Because they seem to have missed the boat on almost everything about the course so far, which is concerning. Always make sure you meet those requirements as well, right? If I ask you for a textbook source and a web source, I should see those sources appear in your essay. If I ask you to write 3 full pages, you need to reach 3 full pages, right? And I hate to sound condescending or overly simplistic, I don't mean to, but it's clear to me that there are people in the class who are not on board with this so far. So I'm encouraging you to get on board with some of my expectations. So what's the good news? What's the cheerleading part? The good news is that you still have plenty of time and space in the semester to improve your grade. So even if you don't love the grade that you got on Essay 2, which I'm sure a couple of you will not, you still have the chance to make a really big impact on your final grade for the semester. So think about visiting the Writing Center, either in person or online as an online student. Also keep in mind, most students tend to perceive in-person help as the most effective for the Writing Center. So if you're able to get to campus, that may be helpful for you. And also keep in mind that the Writing Center gets busier and busier as the semester wears on. So it might be a good idea to make appointments ahead of time, maybe even for the remainder of the semester, so that you can make sure that if you need help, you are able to get in and receive that help, right? Of course, if you can't make the Writing Center, I am thrilled to host students during my office hours to review your draft and give you really specific feedback on it and to answer any questions that you might have. So it's not always possible for me to review everybody's rough drafts just with the grading that I have to do, the amount of grading and the coursework that I have. So I'm not able to do that over email. But if you wanted to come into my office and have me take a look at your draft in person, I would be thrilled to do that. And then you'll get it right from the horse's mouth. I'll take out my pen and I'll show you, what are you doing well and what do you need to work to improve. Beyond your professor's help and the help at the Writing Center, you also have numerous sources available to you. So reference your Back to the Lake textbook. Use that Little Seagull handbook. I required you to have it for a reason because it has so much good and helpful information about everything from grammar to writing paragraphs to conducting research to citing your sources, which is so, so important. So don't be afraid to reach out to those resources that you actually have at hand to you. So overall, some people did fabulous and awesome on Essay 1. Some people still have opportunities to improve, but the good news is that opportunity for improvement does exist and you can take advantage of it. But the key thing is going to be being a self-started, self-motivated person in this online class. If you're trying to skate by with not doing reading assignments, not leaving yourself time to work, not leaving yourself time to research, to write and revise, it's going to be really difficult for you to meet the rigor and the expectations of this college level English 1001 course. So if you do have any questions, I hope that you feel really comfortable getting in touch with me. You can call me, email me, you can use the Q&A form on our Blackboard, or again, I'd be happy to host you during my office hours and offer you some of my yummy candy I'm always trying to lure people in with. So have a good day, take a deep breath, reset yourself and recommit to success in the online course, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.